Imagine waking up one morning, opening your front door, and finding a box with your name written on it. No delivery man. No note. Just a plain box sitting quietly on your doorstep. Would you open it? That was exactly what happened to Daniel, a 28-year-old graphic designer. It was a cold Saturday morning when he stepped outside in his gray hoodie, hair still messy from sleep. He only meant to grab the newspaper, but what he saw made him freeze. Right there, on the doormat, sat a small cardboard box. No stamps. No address. Just one thing written in bold, black letters. Daniel. His street was silent. No neighbors outside. No delivery trucks anywhere in sight. Daniel whispered to himself, "Who would leave this here?" For a moment, he thought about ignoring it, pretending he hadn't seen it. But the more he looked at that box, the more his curiosity grew. He picked it up slowly and carried it inside, placing it carefully on his kitchen table. His hands trembled as he grabbed a knife to cut the tape. The box creaked open, and inside, wrapped in crumpled old newspaper, was something strange, an antique pocket watch. It looked heavy and expensive, with tiny details carved into its sides. But when Daniel flipped it over, his stomach dropped. On the back, scratched into the metal, were 3 chilling words. "Don't trust her." Daniel's pulse quickened. Don't trust who? And who could have possibly left this for him? He stared at the watch, noticing something even stranger. The watch wasn't ticking, yet the hands were moving. Slowly, backwards. And then, just as he leaned in to look closer, there was a sudden knock at the door. A hard, urgent knock that made him jump. Daniel froze, his eyes darting to the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. Whoever left that box might have come back. When he finally worked up the courage to open the door, what he saw made his blood run cold. Daniel's heart pounded as he gripped the doorknob. The knock had been sharp, deliberate, like someone demanding to be let in. He hesitated, his breath fogging in the cold air seeping through the cracks of the door. Slowly, he pulled it open. Standing on the porch was a woman he had never seen before. She looked to be in her early 30s, with long chestnut brown hair falling over a dark green coat. Her face was pale, her sharp eyes scanning Daniel as if she already knew him. Without saying a word, she extended her hand, holding an identical cardboard box. This one was slightly larger, sealed tightly, his name again written in bold black letters across the top. Daniel's mouth went dry. "What is this? Who are you?" he asked, voice unsteady. The woman tilted her head, lips curving into the faintest smile. "You opened the first one, didn't you?" she said softly. Her voice carried a calmness that felt wrong, almost rehearsed. Daniel's grip on the door tightened. "Why are you giving me this?" She didn't answer. Instead, she placed the box firmly in his hands, leaned close enough for him to catch the faint scent of old perfume, and whispered, "Time is running out." Before he could respond, she turned and walked away down the empty street. No car, no footsteps fading. Just gone, like she had dissolved into the morning mist. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, clutching the second box. His skin prickled as he glanced back at the first one, sitting open on his kitchen table, the pocket watch inside still ticking backwards. 2 boxes, one stranger, and one warning that chilled him to his core. What was he supposed to do now? Daniel closed the door slowly, his back pressed against it as though shutting out the stranger would somehow make her vanish from his thoughts. But her words echoed in his mind. Time is running out. He placed the second box beside the first on the table. 2 identical boxes, both with his name on them, both delivered by people, or forces, he didn't understand. His fingers hovered over the larger box. Part of him screamed to throw it away, to burn it, to pretend none of this was happening. But another part, the part already trapped by curiosity, needed to know. With trembling hands, he tore through the tape. Inside, cushioned by layers of black fabric, lay a thick envelope. On the outside, scrawled in the same sharp handwriting, were the words, "Do not trust her." Daniel's throat tightened. The first box had warned him with a pocket watch. Now the second box repeated the same warning, only clearer. But who was her? The woman who had just handed it to him? Someone else entirely? He ripped the envelope open, scattering its contents across the table. Photographs. Dozens of them. Each one showed Daniel, snapshots of him walking to work, buying groceries, even sitting alone in his apartment. Some were taken weeks ago. Others looked like yesterday. And then at the bottom of the stack, one photo made his heart stop. It was a picture of him sleeping in his own bed. The angle was impossible, unless someone had been standing right there in his room. Daniel staggered back from the table, his breath coming fast. Someone had been watching him. Closely. For a long time. And just as panic set in, the pocket watch on the table began to tick loudly. Not backwards this time, but faster. Each tick echoing through the silence like a countdown. Daniel's eyes darted to the watch as the ticking grew louder and faster, until it almost sounded like a heartbeat. His pulse raced with it. Then suddenly, bang! A loud crash erupted from somewhere inside the house. Daniel spun around. He wasn't alone anymore. Daniel's body froze at the sound of the crash. His heart hammered in his chest as his eyes scanned the shadows of his living room. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs felt rooted to the floor. The ticking of the pocket watch grew louder, faster, like it was pulling him toward something. He grabbed a flashlight from the counter and moved slowly down the hallway. The air felt heavy, colder with each step. When he reached the living room, the source of the noise became clear. His bookshelf, an old wooden one he'd owned for years, had toppled over. Books were scattered across the floor. But Daniel knew something wasn't right. That shelf had been bolted to the wall. It couldn't have fallen on its own. As he bent down to pick up a book, he noticed something strange. Behind where the shelf had stood, the wall looked different. The wallpaper was torn, revealing a thin crack running vertically, almost like the outline of a hidden door. Daniel's pulse quickened. He pressed his fingers along the edges of the crack, and to his shock, the wall gave way slightly under his touch. A hidden door. In his own home. His hand shook as he reached for the handle of the pocket watch on the table. The ticking had slowed, almost waiting for him, as though it wanted him to open whatever was behind that wall. Taking a deep breath, Daniel pushed on the crack. The wall creaked, and the hidden door slowly swung open. Darkness spilled out, colder than the rest of the house, carrying a faint smell of dust and something metallic, like rust. Daniel lifted the flashlight and shone it inside. What he saw made his breath catch. It was a narrow staircase leading down into the ground beneath his house. The walls were lined with more photographs of him, hundreds of them, pinned like a grotesque gallery. At the bottom of the stairs, he could just make out the faint shape of another box, identical to the first two. His grip tightened on the flashlight. Whoever was behind this wasn't just watching him. They had been living in the shadows of his own home. And now they wanted him to follow. Daniel gripped the flashlight, so tightly his knuckles turned white. The air from the hidden staircase was icy, carrying a faint metallic tang that made his stomach churn. He hesitated at the top step, every part of him screaming not to go down. But the sight of that third box, waiting silently in the darkness, pulled him forward. Step by step, he descended. The wooden stairs creaked beneath his weight, each sound echoing into the unknown below. His flashlight beam wavered as his hands trembled. The photographs on the wall seemed to stare at him as he passed, images of him smiling, frowning, eating, sleeping. Some of the photos were so recent, he swore they must have been taken just yesterday. Someone had been here, watching, documenting his every move. Finally, he reached the bottom. The basement was small, concrete walls damp and cracked, the ceiling low enough that he had to duck slightly. And there, in the center of the floor, sat the third box. It looked just like the others. Plain cardboard. His name written in bold, black marker. Only this one was wet. Dark stains spread across its sides, seeping into the floor beneath it. Daniel's breath caught. His instincts screamed to leave it alone, to run upstairs and never look back. But his hand moved on its own, reaching for the lid. Slowly, he pried it open. Inside was a bundle of old, yellowed letters tied together with a piece of string. He picked them up, and the first thing he noticed was the handwriting. It was his mother's. Daniel's throat tightened. His mother had died when he was 12. She couldn't have written these, unless someone had kept them hidden all this time. His hands shook as he pulled one letter free and unfolded it. The words inside made his blood run cold. Daniel, if you are reading this, it means she has found you. Do not trust her. She is not who she claims to be. Before he could process the words, a soft creak echoed from the staircase behind him. Someone else was down there. Daniel froze, the letters slipping from his fingers as the sound creaked again. Someone was on the staircase. Slowly, he raised his flashlight toward the steps, the beam cutting through the shadows. Nothing. The stairs were empty, but he knew he wasn't alone. The air shifted, heavy and tense, like the basement itself was holding its breath. Daniel's eyes darted back to the letters in his hands. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Do not trust her. He shoved the bundle into his pocket, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. Then another sound. Not from the stairs this time. From the far corner of the basement. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Daniel swung the flashlight beam toward it and felt his stomach twist. There was an old rocking chair he hadn't noticed before. It sat facing the wall, its wooden frame moving back and forth on its own. Tap! 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 His voice cracked as he whispered, Who's there? The chair creaked to a stop. Silence filled the basement. And then, from behind him, a woman's voice whispered, so close it brushed against his ear. I told you, time is running out. Daniel spun around, the flashlight beam shaking wildly. But the basement was empty. No one there. Just the letters in his pocket, the dark box at his feet, and the suffocating silence pressing in on him. His breathing grew ragged. Either he was losing his mind, or someone, or something, was toying with him. And just as he thought about bolting back upstairs, the pocket watch upstairs began to chime. Not tick, not hum, but chime. The sound rang down the staircase, echoing through the basement like a distorted church bell. Daniel's skin crawled. The watch wasn't counting time anymore. It was announcing something. Something. Or someone that was already coming. Daniel bolted up the staircase 2 steps at a time, the haunting chime of the pocket watch rattling his nerves. He burst into the kitchen, chest heaving, eyes darting wildly. There it was, the watch on the table. But it wasn't just ticking anymore. Its hands spun violently in circles, and every few seconds it gave off that eerie, hollow chime. Daniel snatched it up, desperate to silence it. The moment his fingers touched the metal, the spinning stopped. The watch's hands froze, locked at 3:17. And then, the front door creaked open. Daniel whipped around, his heart leaping into his throat. The door eased wider, inch by inch, until she stepped inside, the same woman with chestnut hair and the green coat. Only this time, her eyes looked different. Darker. Sharper. Almost glowing. Daniel backed away, voice shaking. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this? She closed the door behind her gently, her every movement calm, deliberate. You shouldn't have opened the boxes, she said softly. You weren't supposed to find them yet. Daniel's voice cracked. My mother warned me about you. Who are you? The woman tilted her head, her faint smile returning. Your mother, she whispered, stepping closer. She knew me well. She knew what I was capable of, but she never told you the full truth. Daniel gripped the pocket watch tightly. What truth? Her eyes locked onto the watch in his hand. That watch doesn't belong to you. It was never meant to. Daniel swallowed hard, confusion mixing with fear. Then why was it left for me? She stopped just a few feet away, lowering her voice until it was almost a hiss. Because, Daniel, whether you want to or not, you're about to finish what she started. Daniel's chest tightened. His mother had been gone for 16 years. What could she possibly have started? And why did the stranger know more about it than he did? Before he could ask another question, the pocket watch in his hand clicked open on its own. Inside the cover, scratched into the metal, were 4 words he had never seen before. She is already here. Daniel's eyes darted back up, but the woman was gone. The door was closed, the room empty. Only the faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air. Daniel stood frozen, clutching the pocket watch, so tightly it cut into his palm. The woman had vanished again, as if she had never been there. But the words inside the watch burned into his mind. She is already here. His hands shook as he grabbed the bundle of letters from his pocket. If there were answers, they had to be in his mother's handwriting. He sat at the kitchen table, forcing himself to read through the fragile papers. The first letter was short, hurried, written like someone was running out of time. Daniel, you will not remember much. That is how I kept you safe. But when the watch finds you, it means the cycle has begun again. The woman in green, she cannot be trusted. She moves between time itself. She will try to use you. Do not let her. You are stronger than she thinks. Daniel's throat went dry. His mother had known this would happen. She had prepared for it. But how? And why did she say he wouldn't remember much? He flipped through more letters. Some were nearly unreadable, smudged with age, but they repeated the same warning. The woman in green. Always her. And then, tucked at the very bottom of the stack, Daniel found something different. A photograph. It was old, black and white, edges curled. His mother stood there, younger, smiling faintly. But standing beside her was the same woman who had just been in his house. Same chestnut hair. Same sharp eyes. Same dark green coat. Daniel's chest tightened. The photo looked decades old, yet the woman hadn't aged a single day. His head spun. Whoever she wasn't human. Just then, the pocket watch in his hand gave a single, heavy tick. The frozen hands shifted, just 1 minute forward, now resting on 3:18. Daniel's stomach dropped. The letters, the photo, the warnings, they weren't random. The watch wasn't broken. It was counting down, and whatever it was counting to was getting closer. Daniel sat frozen at the table, the old letters spread before him, the photograph still clutched in his hand. His mother, smiling faintly beside a woman who hadn't aged in decades. The same woman who had just stood in his kitchen. The watch ticked again. 3:19. And with that single movement, the kitchen light above him flickered, buzzing like an angry wasp before steadying again. Daniel's breath hitched. He stared down at the watch. Could it really be controlling what was happening around him? Was every passing minute another warning? Or worse, another event waiting to unfold? The letters echoed in his mind. She moves between time itself. She will try to use you. Daniel rubbed his temples, panic pressing in. Why him? Why now? The watch ticked again. 3:20. This time, the sound was followed by a soft shuffle from the hallway. Daniel's head snapped toward it, his pulse pounding. Slowly, he stood and crept forward, flashlight still clutched tightly in his hand. The hallway stretched before him, dark and silent. At the far end, the mirror on the wall caught his reflection. Except, it wasn't quite his reflection. Daniel's body froze. The figure in the mirror wore his clothes, had his face, but the eyes were wrong. Too dark, too sharp, and as Daniel raised his flashlight in fear, his reflection didn't copy him. Instead, it smiled. Daniel stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. The reflection lifted a hand and pressed his finger against its lips. A clear warning. Silence. The watch ticked again. 3:21. And suddenly, the hallway lights burst, plunging the house into darkness. Daniel gasped, gripping the flashlight, its beams shaking as he whispered, "What is happening to me?" From the shattered dark, the woman's calm voice drifted once more, so close it felt like she was standing right behind him. "It isn't happening to you, Daniel. It's happening because of you." Daniel spun around, flashlight beams slicing through the darkness. His chest rose and fell in rapid bursts, every nerve in his body screaming to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The voice had been right behind him, but when the light swept across the hall, no one was there. Then the watch ticked again. 3:22. This time, he didn't need to guess. She appeared, not from a door, not from the shadows, but like she simply stepped out of the air itself. The woman in green stood calmly a few feet away, her chestnut hair falling loosely around her pale face, her sharp eyes glinting, as though she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Daniel stumbled back until his shoulders hit the wall. "Stay away from me!" he shouted, his voice cracking. Her lips curved into that faint, unsettling smile. "You can't hide from me, Daniel. You never could." His knuckles whitened around the pocket watch. "Why me? Why these boxes? What do you want from me?" She stepped forward slowly, her voice calm, steady, almost soothing. "I don't want anything from you. I want what belongs to me. The watch. The letters. The cycle. Your mother tried to stop it, but she failed. Now it's your turn." Daniel's head shook violently. "No. My mother warned me about you. She said not to trust you." Her eyes darkened, but her voice stayed eerily calm. "Of course she did. She was afraid, but she never told you the truth, did she? About who you really are, about why the watch chose you." Daniel froze, his mind reeling. "What are you talking about?" The woman tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle piece she'd been waiting to place. You think you're just some ordinary man, but your bloodline carries something your mother tried to bury, something older than either of us. And the countdown is waking it up. The watch ticked again. 3:23. This time, the sound was louder, almost thunderous. The floor beneath Daniel's feet seemed to tremble with it. The woman leaned closer, her whisper brushing against his ear like a knife. When it strikes 3:30, you'll finally understand what you are. Daniel's hands trembled as he clutched the pocket watch. The weight of it felt heavier now, as if it were pulling him down, anchoring him to something he couldn't escape. The woman's words burned in his mind. When it strikes 3:30, you'll finally understand what you are. The watch ticked again. 3:24. The lights in the hallway flickered violently, buzzing before cutting out completely. Daniel's flashlight beam wavered across the woman in green, but when he blinked, she was gone. His chest heaved. He backed toward the kitchen, muttering, "This isn't real. This can't be real." But as he gripped the counter for balance, a sharp pain stabbed through his palm. He looked down in horror. The watch had burned a mark into his skin, an intricate circle, glowing faintly like an ember. Daniel dropped it with a cry, but instead of clattering to the floor, the watch hovered inches above the ground, spinning slowly in midair. His breath hitched. What the hell? The letters on the table rustled, scattering as if caught in a wind that wasn't there. One sheet slapped against his chest. Daniel peeled it away and froze. It wasn't a letter this time, it was a drawing. A rough sketch of a figure that looked exactly like him, but surrounded by flames, his eyes black, his hands clawed. The watch ticked again. 3:25, and that's when Daniel heard it. Faint whispers, echoing all around him. They weren't coming from the walls or the letters. They were coming from inside his own head. Words he couldn't understand, ancient, cold, weaving through his thoughts like poison. He clamped his hands over his ears, but the whispers only grew louder. His reflection in the dark kitchen window twisted, showing not him, but the same monstrous figure from the drawing. Daniel stumbled back, screaming, "Get out of my head!" And just as the panic swallowed him whole, the woman's voice cut through the noise, calm and steady, though she was nowhere to be seen. "Don't fight it, Daniel. Every tick brings you closer to the truth. And when the clock strikes 3:30, there will be no turning back." The watch ticked again. 3:26. The watch spun in the air, glowing brighter now, its ticking loud enough to rattle Daniel's skull. He pressed himself against the wall, nails digging into the plaster, but his body wasn't listening to him anymore. His hands shook violently, his chest heaved, and every breath burned as if his lungs were filling with smoke. The mark on his palm spread further up his arm, glowing in fiery strands like molten veins. Daniel clawed at his skin, desperate to tear it out, but the more he resisted, the deeper the glow seared into him. It wasn't just on his flesh anymore, it was inside him. 3:27. His reflection in the window warped again. At first, it was his face, sweat-drenched, terrified. Then, slowly, it twisted, lips curling back into a grin he hadn't made, eyes bleeding into pools of black. The figure on the other side of the glass raised its hand in unison with his, only the claws were real. "No!" Daniel shouted, stumbling backward. His voice cracked, but it was drowned out by the whispers flooding his head. They weren't whispers anymore. They were chants, rhythmic and commanding, speaking in a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. 3 more ticks. Become what you were meant to be. 3:28. Daniel dropped to his knees, clutching his head. The kitchen warped again, walls flickering in and out like failing film. For a second, he saw nothing but fire and shadowed figures circling him, their eyes glowing with hunger. He could smell burning flesh. He could hear screaming, but it wasn't from them. It was his own. The hovering watch spun faster, now pulling him forward like a magnet. His legs moved without him wanting them to, dragging him toward the dark hallway. His throat strained as he tried to shout, to resist, but the words caught like ash on his tongue. And then, the boy appeared again. The same boy with his eyes, standing at the end of the hallway. Only this time, the shadows behind him loomed closer, taller, reaching. "Daddy," the boy whispered, voice trembling. "Don't fight it, they'll take you anyway." 3:29. The final minute had begun. And Daniel could feel himself slipping, piece by piece, into something he could never come back from. Something he could never come back from. 3:30. The sound was deafening. The watch gave one final, thunderous tick, and then silence. Daniel froze, every nerve in his body snapping tight. For a heartbeat, the world held still. The air hung heavy, thick like tar. The kitchen swallowed an unnatural quiet. Even the shadows seemed to stop moving. Then the watch dropped. Not to the floor, but into Daniel's chest. He screamed as the impact rippled through him like fire and ice colliding. His back arched, his vision flared white, and the mark on his arm exploded across his skin, racing over his chest, his neck, his face. His veins glowed red, his eyes rolled black, and his teeth clenched until blood filled his mouth. The whispers turned into roars, not outside anymore, but inside, crashing and clawing against his skull. His reflection in the window no longer mimicked him. It led him, grinning with jagged teeth, its claws raised high. Daniel staggered forward, choking on his own breath. He reached for the table to steady himself, but the wood warped under his touch, charring instantly as if his fingers carried fire. "Stop it!" he screamed, voice breaking. "Get out of me!" But another voice, his voice, answered from his own mouth, deeper, guttural, not his own. Asterisk, there is no you anymore. There is only us. Asterisk. The boy in the hallway stepped closer, eyes wide with tears. "Daddy, please. Fight it." Daniel's body jerked violently, torn between two forces, the boy's desperate plea and the darkness pouring into his veins. His chest burned like it would split open. His knees buckled. And then, silence again. Daniel looked up. The boy was gone. The kitchen was gone. He was standing alone in that same scorched wasteland, the sky split with fire, shadows circling closer. The watch floated before him, glowing brighter than ever. And for the first time, Daniel understood with chilling clarity. This wasn't about a choice. This was about destiny. The wasteland burned red under a sky split open with fire. Daniel staggered forward, his veins glowing like molten cracks beneath his skin, his every breath jagged and heavy. The watch floated in front of him, its light searing, its ticking finally silent. And then the woman in green appeared. She didn't walk toward him. She was simply there, standing in the ash, her coat untouched by the flames. Her sharp eyes locked on him with a mix of pity and triumph. "You feel it now, don't you?" she said softly. "The truth you've been running from your whole life." Daniel's chest heaved. His voice shook as he forced the words out. What am I?" Her lips curved into a thin smile. "Not a man. Not anymore. You are the tether. The bridge between two worlds. The child of shadow and flesh." Daniel's stomach lurched. The words twisted in his mind, wrapping around memories he didn't even know he had. His mother's letters. The whispers in his blood. The boy who called him daddy. "No," he rasped, shaking his head violently. You were never just anything," she cut in, her voice rising. "Your bloodline was chosen. Your body carries the key. That's why the watch found you. That's why time itself bends around you. When it struck 3:30, Daniel, you didn't lose yourself. You became what you were meant to be." He looked down at his hands, no longer hands at all. The claws were real now, curling, dripping with heat. His reflection in the air showed him fully changed. Eyes like pits of fire, skin etched with glowing sigils. A monster. A weapon. Daniel dropped to his knees, clutching his head. "No, I'm not this. I can't be this." But the woman crouched before him, her face inches from his. "You are. And in the next tick of the watch, you'll see why we've been waiting for you. Why you were never allowed to escape." Daniel's scream tore through the wasteland, echoing into nothing. And as the ash swirled around him, the boy's voice whispered one last time, so faint it nearly vanished. "Daddy, if you give in, I'll be gone forever." The wasteland quaked beneath Daniel's knees, ash swirling into storms around him. The watch floated closer, its glow so bright it seared his eyes, its silence heavier than thunder. The woman in green stood tall, her arms outstretched as if welcoming a king returning to his throne. "It's time," she declared. "Step into what you were born to be. Claim your place among us." Daniel's claws shook. His chest heaved. The whispers inside his skull urged him to surrender, to let the darkness swallow him whole. And for a moment, he almost did. Then he heard it. The boy's voice. Not faint this time, but strong, urgent, desperate. Daddy, don't let them take you. Fight! Daniel's eyes snapped open, the blackness in them flickering with something else, something human. His body trembled violently, torn in two. The watch pressed harder against his chest, trying to bury itself inside him. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound, and with every ounce of strength left in him, he gripped the watch with both hands. It burned through his flesh, his veins lit up like fire, but he didn't let go. The woman's face twisted with rage. No! You belong to us! Daniel roared back, forcing the words past the blood in his throat. I belong to me! With a final cry, he slammed the watch into the ground. The world shattered. Light exploded across the wasteland, swallowing the shadows, tearing the sky apart. The screams of unseen figures echoed and faded into nothing. The woman in green let out a piercing wail before dissolving into dust. And then silence. Daniel collapsed, his claws gone, his skin scarred but human again. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his kitchen. The table, the window, the floor normal. Only ash marked where the watch had fallen. He looked up. Standing in the doorway was the boy. Not fading. Not shadow. Solid. Real. Daddy, the boy whispered, a tear sliding down his cheek. Daniel reached out, his hands trembling, not from power, but from the fragile relief of being human again. And for the first time since the boxes appeared, Daniel realized he wasn't alone. The watch was gone. The nightmare was over. Or at least it was for now.